Hello, welcome to Akron Local News. I'm George Carter, and we paint positive images of our people every day. Today, we're here with a councilman from Akron, Ohio, Councilman Samuel DeShazior, and he's the first ward councilman here in the city, and he's here to tell us a little bit about what he's doing in his community, what's going on in Akron, and some of the information that's going on with Black History Month.
Yeah.
In fact, you are quite the historian, I understand. Give us a little bit of intake on what it is you do.
Well, George, I want to tell you that don't let the smooth taste fool you. I'm not a historian, not a paleontologist, but I paid attention to Akron history over the years, and particularly what's happened is I paid attention to a lot of the contributions of African Americans in the central Akron area.
Okay.
So I represent Ward 1. So if you ever actually go to the map and you look at it, it's either an amoeba or a paramecium. So it's designed that way out of our 10 wards so that each one of our wards will have exactly 10% of the population.
Okay.
So Ward 1 starts right there at about Route 8.
Okay.
It has everything in between the Exchange Street and Market Street all the way to downtown, including the University of Akron. It has most of the central part of downtown, but if you look at the eastern side of Main Street, all the way down to Market, and if you go down Market Street all the way to Highland Square, go down past Highland Square, down in the Merriman Valley on the right-hand side of Merriman Road, all the way up through where Timber Top Apartments are, down through Northampton, all the way out to the Ascot Industrial Park, and that's the end of Ward 1.
That's quite a ward. That's quite a ward there. Yeah.
They pay people a lot of money to be able to draw those maps exactly and to represent the best that Akron has to offer, and that's what I think Ward 1 is. So I'm the Ward 1 representative and been doing it now for going on my second year.
Okay.
And just tell you a little bit about Ward 1. University of Akron's in Ward 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first thing that you know about the University of Akron, where it is the very best, is that we are the #1 polymer science, polymer engineering, and material science program in the world, bar none. The very first polymer course in history was taught at the University of Akron in the spring semester of 1909.
Oh my goodness.
It was taught by a professor. His name was Dr. Charles Knight, and it was the history and chemistry of Indian rubber, which kind of put, Akron on the map. That same year, the American Chemical Society decided to break off its rubber division, one of the few times it's done it, and it moved it here to Akron, Ohio. So since 1909, the American Chemical Society's rubber division has been located right here in Akron.
That's something very interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who have worked in rubber chemistry over the time. You may have heard of Ray Dove.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so his daughter, of course, was the Poet Laureate of the United States.
Exactly, Rita.
Yeah.
Rita,
and so, it's a lot to be proud of. So that's Black history in the making right there.
Exactly. Those are very significant points in our history.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And so going back to the very beginning, I want to tell you something that happened in Akron. If you really look at some of the history of it, what you'll find is that in 1851, there was a train that slowly creeped into Akron, and a woman got off of that train, and she delivered a great speech, Sojourner Truth. And she did the speech, Ain't I a Woman?
That's the one.
And of course, it set the stage for women's suffrage in America. But it happened right here in this ward.
Okay.
And so, there's a lot of people who embraced the spirit and enthusiasm of it. And at this particular point, what we're seeing is that we're being challenged now across the board for the human rights. And we have always been a town that has been a place where all of the multi-ethnic and cultural diversities of the world marketplace would come here to Akron, and they would get a chance to thrive and to prosper right here in this town. And so that's really what we're talking about when we talk about Black history.
Right.
It's a draw out to make sure that everybody gets a chance to have the representation that it means in order for us to grow and to prosper here in the marketplace.
Correct. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And there's so many opportunities that are still here. And the political climate in the United States seems to be changing in a way that's not necessarily conducive. So it's of the utmost importance for our citizens to get and keep involved in local politics to make sure that some of the things that we need are followed through on and not just diminished or pushed to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, as you say, we are very rich in history in, the fact that the Underground Railroad came right through Akron, Ohio.
It did.
And in fact, it had very significant meanings for a lot of people. A lot of people, even after the slavery issue, came through Akron because they once knew someone that passed through this way, and they found employment and made homes. So,
well, from what I understand, the development of the Ohio Erie Canal system came about because of several trips that were taken by several of the early pioneering leaders of the United States.
Okay.
One of which was Thomas Jefferson himself, who had traveled to Europe and seen the canal system. And it cost, during the time in 1800, $9 to take a ton of anything on a wagon about 100 miles. But you also could take $9 and fill an entire canal boat with materials and float it all the way to Europe.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
For the same money.
Yeah, for the same money.
Yeah.
So, the fact that Akron grew up around the canal and being the high place in the watershed and all of the locks that it took in order for those pieces of mercantile and develop farm equipment and all of the grain and the way that we were feeding America, even during the Civil War.
Right. That
became a place that caused Akron to be a juggernaut of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not sure whether or not the people who were the settlers at that time knew what they had stumbled upon. But as I said, Sojourner Truth came here. The greatest sheep farmer in this area at that time also was a guy by the name of John Brown.
Right.
John Brown, abolitionist.
Exactly.
And
Harper's Ferry.
Yeah. So Harper's Ferry obviously was in Virginia at that time, now West Virginia.
Right.
But John Brown set out to liberate the munitions depot down at Harper's Ferry, Virginia.
Correct.
And so the people of my ward actually gave him knives, guns, muskets, some swords. And one group of citizens actually helped him raise enough money that they bought a cannon and gave it to John Brown to take to Harper's Ferry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so, it's been the spirit of taking human suffering, brotherhood, and responsibility to bring all people groups to the forefront, that all hands on deck means that we're a better nation.
Exactly.
And that's what John Brown was setting out to do, and Akron played a big part in it.
That's true. And that goes to show that Akron has not always been in the circumstances that it finds itself in now, and we're capable of so much more given the right inspiration to be able to treat everyone equally and equitably and afford them an opportunity.
Well, there's a lot of history here. A lot of it was developed when people came together to make sure that we were marching to the same beat.
Right.
Like, I'll give you for instance, So in 1886, one thing that happened is that Thomas Edison married a young woman by the name of Mina Miller, right up on top of the hill here, on top of Oak Park Hill.
Okay.
And so Edison convinced several people, including his father-in-law, to let him take this newfangled science that he's talking about. It's almost like witchcraft. It's called electricity.
Oh my goodness. Who would have heard such a thing?
Yeah, well, and he took the electricity and electrolyzed some of the chances to take machinery and equipment and use these magnetic forces to start electricity. So in some ways, Akron is responsible for the help and development of Industry 2.0.
Okay.
So I don't know, are you familiar or have you kept up with Industry 4.0?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, so I'm going to make it really, really plain. So Industry 1.0 is when everything that we know today was being powered by two sources, either water or steam.
Okay.
2.0 comes along when Edison comes and he brings electricity to the marketplace and starts to run machinery and equipment through electricity. 3.0 comes along when, of course, you get into the 20th century. You're starting to come out of World War II, and the use of computerized learning is starting to reach the marketplace for the first time. And we're using computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing, and we're utilizing the best talents of the digital age of the time in order to make ourselves more efficient with technology, more efficient with production, and creating an opportunity to get our products to the marketplace faster.
Okay.
That was the turning point where a strong back and a good work ethic may have been the linchpin for people getting a job back then, but they're also looking at the knowledge area of the marketplace. And this is the turning point also when we're looking for ways to do it even faster, being able to control price, and to drive labor to a point where those who know and are filled with knowledge and also willing to work hard can make a good living in this town.
Absolutely.
And so people who were living in Akron, Ohio, were living pretty good.
Absolutely. Thanks to, on the backs of a lot of people previous to us, and a lot of unique inventions, the Cyberlane, the Goodyear tire and rubber. There was a lot of opportunities afforded by a lot of different aspects of industry right here in Akron. And it's great talking to you about these things. I want to be able to sit down and do this with you more often. You are such a wealth of information. I feel that you are a very prized asset to the community, and we have to have a way to conduit this information to our viewers.
Well, I would tell you that, I don't want to think that I know all there is to know about it, but, in just reading a lot of the literature that's out today, you'll notice that we're going into the 4.0 era.
Okay.
And so we're using AI. We're using blockchain management in terms of the way that we are funding the digital age of information to be conveyed from one place to another. We're a strange new world.
Very much so.
And it's a world that is befitting of people who have a great yearning for learning, for creating the workplace where we live, work, and play. And I'm happy to share what I know. But at the same time, I think a lot of the people who are the industry officials of today, they realize that we are in a worldwide chase for talent, and we're in a worldwide competition for our products to reach the marketplace. So if the entire marketplace of the world traded about $74 trillion in 2000, 24, arguably, you realize that the United States actually traded about 27 trillion of the total $74 trillion.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that means all hands on deck for us in order to make this country the place that it should be, to make this state stand out as the 8th largest economy in the U.S., and the fact that Akron is punching above its weight when it comes down to gross municipal product. So, I'm proud of Akron, and I am happy of what we've been able to accomplish. One of the oldest manufacturers in the Akron area was Akron Paint and Varnish, APV
on the south side,
products on the south side.
Yeah. I put a furnace in there in my old career.
Oh, really? Okay.
As an iron worker, yes.
Would you may not have known this, but more than 100 years ago, back in the 1880s, they started on the canal right there at Bowery Street.
I did not know that.
And so they moved, and so I happened to be talking to their president and CEO, and he was just telling me the story about his father, who was a production leader, his grandfather, who was a production leader, his great-grandfather, who was a production leader. There are a lot of places where that story cannot be told in 4th and 5th
generations, exactly.
And so we have a great legacy that we need to share so that people know that the whole world beat a path to Akron, Ohio, because there was a great opportunity for them to live well, to work hard, but to also be able to pass on something to the next generation.
To prosper, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's been quite a pleasure having you here tonight.
Yeah.
And like I say, every time we get together, I feel like I should be getting a certificate and further learning in my education because you are such a wealth of knowledge for me. You bring so many things to the table that you are a valued asset in this community, sir. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. And I wish you all the best of luck in all the endeavors that you have. And you're doing a great job in Ward 1, which is a very significant ward. One thing I like about the ward is you got control of part of the canal. At some point, I would love to see the power of that water flowing downhill to be used for something, because they ground oats for a long time, and they did all sorts of millage went on. Now, to me, that's water that flows right through our community, completely untaxed. I come through the community, they tax me on my house, they tax me for our roads. We should be taxing that water just for passing through. It flows downhill, it'll turn a water wheel, it'll generate electricity. There's various forms of industry that we could utilize using the power of that water. So,
well, one of the things you should know is that we are returning the water back to the Cuyahoga River in the most manageable way possible that we have in the last 100 years. Our Waterways Renewed project has caused us to also be able to work with other communities, because what we do affects others as well, all the way up into Cleveland and out into Lake Erie. But yeah, we'll visit again sometime real soon, and you give us a topic, we can go from sports all the way down to the production operations. Ward 1 has been a part of each and every one of those decisions to make Akron the city that it is today. And we want to keep it that way.
And we have the right man at the helm to do that.
All right.
Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
This has been a podcast from the Mecca Media Social Media Network.